Volume.
Volume is a measurement of the amount of space that an object contains or occupies. This square container has a volume. This triangle container has a volume too. Also, volume can be a measurement of how much an object can hold. For instance, how much water a jug or pitcher can hold.
We can figure out the volume of objects thanks to a little brain power and the use of handy-dandy formulas. One ultra-important thing, the volume of an object is measured in cubic units. Let's see why this is.
To measure the area of a rectangle or a triangle, for instance, you use square units because you can think of squares filling up the area.
With volume, though, we've added another dimension. See, this is no longer a square. It's a cube. There's a dimension here, here, and here. Same with this object, which is called a rectangular prism.
To measure the space it contains, we can think of cubes filling up the space inside. That's volume, and that's why it's measured in cubic units.
If you're measuring the dimensions of the volume of a block of cheese in feet, the volume is expressed in cubic feet. That's a lot of blue cheese.
To determine the volume of a cube, multiply the measures of the three dimensions: length, width, height. Length times width times height. Say we've measured and found the length is 20 centimeters. The width is 20 centimeters, and the height is 20 centimeters. Notice they're all the same? That makes sense because this is a cube. 20 times 20 times 20 is 8,000. So, the volume of this cube is 8,000 cubic centimeters. Don't forget the cubic with your unit, which is centimeters. We write this volume as 8,000 centimeters cubed. The little 3 that is raised up is there because 3 separate measurements are involved in this calculation. 3 dimensions were measured and multiplied.
Rectangular prism. The formula for the volume of a rectangular prism is length times width times height. So you multiply this times this times this.
This rectangular prism has measures of 8 yards, 5 yards, and 4 yards. 8 times 5 times 4 is 160. The volume of this object is 160 cubic yards.
We can find the volumes of all sorts of objects. Let's look at a couple. A cylinder and a cone. This is a cylinder. It has a circular face here, a circular face here, and space all through here. This is a cone. It has one circular face and rises to a point with space here. A cylinder and a cone each has a circle for their face or faces. So we use certain measurements of a circle to find the volume. Let's start by taking a look at some neat things about the circle.
Here's our circle. Here's the center. This is the radius, r. The radius is the distance from the center of the circle to a point on the circle. This is the circumference of the circle, the distance all the way around the circle. There's a formula for the circumference of the circle. It's 2 times pi times the radius.
Pi is a special number, and it's important to know. Pi is a decimal that never ends and never repeats. It starts out 3.14159 and keeps going. Often, we just round pi to 3.14. Pi has a special symbol too, which is actually taken from the Greek alphabet. Those Greek dudes were smart.
So, we can write the formula for the circumference of a circle like this. 2 pi r. Pi is 3.14 and r is the radius of the circle.
The formula for the area of a circle equals pi r squared. We won't try to prove that today. We'll just have to trust those ancient Greeks for now. Notice that the r squared means our answer will be in square units, just like our square and rectangle and triangle.
Okay, now we know that about circles. That's going to help us with our cylinder and our cone here, because each has at least one circle for a face.
The volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. Let's decode that. Pi r squared. That's the area of the circle on the bottom. We take that area and multiply it by h, the height of the cylinder, which is the measurement of the distance between the two circular faces, pi r squared h. The answer is expressed in cubic units because there are 3 dimensions being measured. The r squared counts as 2 dimensions.
This cylinder has a radius of 2 inches and a height of 6 inches. The volume is pi times 2 squared times 6. That's 3.14 times 4 times 6 equals 75.36. So, the volume of this cylinder is 75.36 cubic inches. Don't forget the little 3, a very important part of the units.
The volume of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. Let's decode this one. Pi r squared h is the volume of the cylinder that would encapsulate the cone. So 1/3 is the ratio of space that remains after you cut a cylinder into the cone. We won't explore why it's 1/3 right now, but we can tell our volume is going to be in cubic units just as for the cylinder. H, height, is the distance from the circular face to the tip of the cone. R is the radius of the circular face. 1/3 pi r squared h.
This cone has a radius of 10 centimeters and a height of 35 centimeters. The volume is 1/3 times pi times 10 squared times 35. That's 1/3 times 3.14 times 100 times 35 equals 3,663.33. So, the volume of this cone is 3,663.33 cubic centimeters. Don't forget the units, which includes the cubic part.
Volume is expressed in cubic units. Formulas. The volume of a cube is length times width times height. The volume of a rectangular prism is length times width times height. The volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. The volume of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared h.
That about does it.
A good bit of geometry in just a little bit of time.
A few lines here, an angle there. Pretty soon you're a regular modern day Euclid.
Even me?
Yes, you.
Oh, cool.